Coming up with a nice chunk of time off, we go ahead and take a look back at essentially the first half of the season for the New Jersey Devils and start handing out grades from the very top with the GM through the head coach and down to the players on the ice. Where was their success? Where was their failure? And where do we stand going forward? We dive in coming up next. Yes, my friends, it is DPL, the Devil's Puck Luck Podcast, where we are your host. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. Over there, Danny McDonough. How are we, sir? Taking a brief moment to check in with you before we dive in on our first half grades for the New Jersey Devils.
It's a long break, right? These 9 days off feel like forever, but I'm happy to see Jesper Bratt is going to be at All-Star Weekend. So congratulations to Bratter, who's going to experience that this coming weekend. So it's well deserved. 50 points for this kid. He's absolutely phenomenal. We'll talk obviously more when we get to grading, but want to jump off the show by saying it's great to see Jesper Bratt get that reward.
Of course. And Jack Hughes is going to be there, obviously not participating, but he will be in attendance. So we obviously know that he's had a nice run for himself prior to the injury. Okay, let's start at the very top here before we get on the ice. Let's start with the man that makes all the big decisions in Fitzgerald, GM for the New Jersey Devils. Want to do this in a form and fashion of what we applaud him for, what we boo him for. We'll apply the same thing to Lindy Ruff. Fans might not appreciate either side of this category. When we talk about applauding him, I think we would both probably agree. You tell me if you push back, and I do want to ask a question about one of these players. Resigns Ball, Bastian, Bratt, Holla, and also acquires Toffoli and Miller, among other moves that they made here in this offseason. But those are kind of some of the top highlights there. And I did not include one key name there. Do you agree on that list, though? The big high-level decisions, and especially players that he let go or that he retained. Do you feel like these are all applaud, or do we need to maybe put a couple of boos on him for decisions made?
I think everybody who he basically signed and gave contracts to, he gets an A. Jesper Bratt, obviously that signing, that extension is exactly what we needed. The Timo Meier, obviously it's a little concerning now how he's playing, but I still love that he is a New Jersey Devil. I still love it. I think he's going to be great for this team. There's going to be growing pains with everything. I like the moves he made. What I do not applaud him with, let's go to this, is not the focus on the goaltending and the defense. So, losing Graves and Severson, I think we knew that there was going to be some struggles with younger kids playing on defense. I don't think you and I did not really see it being a massive issue the way it was in the beginning of the season. Kevin Ball, I thought, held his own, but he's not a Graves. He's not a Ryan Graves, who's a veteran guy who's going to block shots, who's going to be consistent defensively. He has a big learning curve. So, for me, I would have loved to see him sign another veteran guy that wasn't Colin Miller, who I think has played well. That's just more of a pure NHL defenseman, veteran guy, stay-at-home defenseman, and goaltending. I think goaltending was the big thing that was the question mark coming into this season. And unfortunately, it has not been great, overall.
And this is where, so the Timo Meier, I'm not putting it into the boo category. It extends back to last year in the trade for him, obviously, as well. But I put it in conjunction with the goaltending situation where it's not that I don't like having Timo Meier, but I do think back to, well, what could this have looked like if I understand you want to bring in that missing piece. You're having a surge last year, right? So it moves the needle for you. And then you want to retain him because you gave something up to get him, all that stuff. But now when you fast forward, he's had the injuries a little bit, but the fit, it just seems like it's taking a little bit longer maybe than I anticipated. An experienced player like him, I think I looked at it, Tyler Toffoli has come in and just kind of hit his stride very quickly. He's had some bad stretches or, downtime here, but overall, he's been the player you expected him to be. I don't think Timo Meier has hit the mark of that. And while we can say, that's on Timo, certainly, you do have to look up the chain of command and go, Fitzgerald, you brought this guy in. You gave him what feels like a solid contract, not a crazy figure. But at the same time, you are now tied to this player in a big way in the short term. And if he's not going to be that higher level guy, then we may look back at this in a couple of seasons and say opportunity missed or maybe just misallocated. You don't bat 1,000 as a GM, but that one's certainly one we're going to watch here. Give him a grade. What do you say for Fitzgerald looking back at the first half of this season?
I give him a B.
It's right there, right? I wanted to give him a B plus, but then you talk about defense, right?
Yeah.
You want to maybe give him, maybe I want to give him a C, a C, But a lot of the players and acquisitions that he made, a lot of players he retained really worked out for him. So I can't knock it too much.
Timo Meyer,
Tangent.
I really sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no.
Timo Meyer, it's interesting because I think he is a creature of habit, and something we're going to talk about Ruff next. Obviously, he's not playing his natural right wing position, which is
Right.
very very concerning to me that it hasn't been switched right away. But also with all the injuries and him coming off an injury, I think that he is just getting shuffled around too much, and there's no consistency for him. So I'm chalking it up to that. I still love the signing. I know a lot of fans and a lot of NHL analysts are coming in. They're like, "Oh man, was this a bad decision to trade for him and to sign him long term?" I don't think so. It's we can't. I think the jury's still out on that. I think there's a lot of time to see what Timo's going to be able to do, especially with a healthy Devils team.
I'm going to go ahead as we move over to Lindy Ruff, and I do agree with you. I'm going to give my grade up top because I feel like it's going to rub a certain segment of the fan base the wrong way. I give him a B plus on this season, and specifically starting out with the fact over 75 missed games combined between Jack Hughes, Hamilton, Heischer, Palat, Timo, Siegenthaler, all critical components to this team, all guys that are at the top of the stat categories for this team year over year, or even coming in the door with some new players. I don't know how, just on the baseline, when we
Mhm.
go and look at the record, we understand they're not where they want to be in the standings. This team isn't 500. They're not below 500. They're above 500 and still in a position to be successful this year. That does go up to the chain of the command to the coach. So I applaud him for managing these injuries, even if we are going to get into discrepancies along the way. You have to look at Lindy Ruff's steady hand for the most part around what are we going to do each and every night? We're just going to take the lumps, adjust to it, play a ton of rookies.
Mhm.
I know a lot of fans didn't want him here to begin with, but he is here. And I actually think his leadership from a veteran coaching standpoint has really benefited this team in the first half.
You're probably in the 5 percentile that would give him above a B. I could tell you that.
Okay.
I give him a. I'm going to give him a C, C plus. I think you can give him a C
Well,
plus.
which one? C plus or C?
C
Because that's a
plus,
big
C plus.
difference. There you
Reason
go.
why the C plus is because of what you just stated. He's dealt with a lot of adversity when it comes to injuries. He's been juggling a lot of players on the top two lines, the third line, fourth line, defensive pairings. These injuries are out of control. And a lot of fans don't realize that what are you going to do with two bad goalies, right?
That
Obviously
too. Right.
bad when VTech was playing bad. That's not a coaching thing, right? That is not a coaching thing at all. When Dawes came here, he brought a couple games of stability. VTech, we can agree, is playing to where he should play now. He's getting back to what he is as an average to a little bit above average goalie, which you see with his numbers for his career. What I don't like that Ruff has done is his handling of Holtz with the injuries and not giving him a chance on the top three lines. I think not getting the minutes that Holtz getting 7 minutes is taking advantage of the minutes, right?
Well, here's the funny part about it is I'll let you continue is that I put in as something I applaud him for is the development of Alexander Holtz like overall, but something I boo him for is managing how and when you use him to continue that developmental process. Because one of the things I applaud him for is Timo having a bad run, you're sitting down, and we
Mhm.
talked about this though. Holtz got left out there, right? So it's this weird push and pull, and I do wonder, as we've said before, is his hand being pressed here a little bit because with all the injuries at a certain point, you have to kind of bite your tongue on wanting to punish players because you just don't have the guys to go and replace
Yeah.
them with at this time.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I agree with you. I think the overall progression of what Ruff has done for Holtz's game is good. I do think it's good. I think this kid is learning, and he is learning the hard way. But his management in the last dozen to 20 games, for instance, when these injuries were happening, not
Mhm.
giving Holtz more ice time is it's not good, man. Because this kid has 8 minutes, 8 minutes a night, probably 8.5 minutes a night. In his last, let's say, 7 to 10 games, he's
Yeah.
taking advantage of it. So hats off to Holtz. He gets an A for me, by the way, because the position that he's put in, the player that he is, his mental well-being right now, for me, he's handled this tremendously. He
Cool.
hasn't looked like a defeated player in his interviews, in his post games, in his mid-game interviews, with Sal or with Erica. He looks okay. He looks fine. I think he's handling this as a young kid very well, and I think it's going to help his development in the future. I'm giving him an A overall just because of that. His two-way game needs to be improved as a player. He is going to get better. He's going to get better in the neutral zone, in the defensive zone, puck management. He will get better. I'm very confident in that. But going back to Ruff, C plus for me. I think, as you said it from the top, it's Dude, it is so difficult to manage all these injuries. It's nearly impossible. It really is.
Of
So
course.
you try to push the right buttons every game. And now with the McLeod and Foot situation too, just in the last few games, pushing the right buttons to find the right centers to put in on the third and fourth line. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, that's the horn, ladies and gentlemen. We're back in for our final period here, talking about actually the player grades, which Danny classically jumped the gun on. We will discuss also some defensive players that we want to spotlight coming up here in just 1 second. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings, because if you're looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into 200 instantly in bonus bets. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code
THPN.
New customers can bet $5 to get 200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with promo code
THPN.
The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hills Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in our friends to the north, Ontario, Canada. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. Okay, Danny. So as we continue on here and now turn our attention over to the player side of our grades this season, Alexander Holtz was the first guy that jumped out to me for a number of reasons, including 47 games played. You know what that is? That's all the games, and something they have to applaud with all the injuries they've had. Across that, he is now going to the notepad. You got to love it. 6th overall with 12 goals on the roster. He sits there at 8th with 11 assists. He is 14th in total minutes played. So again, as you talk about ice time here, right? So he's been productive, even though he's in the middle of the pack in terms of his minutes. He's 4th in shooting percentage, 15.2 on the team, 7th in total shots with 79. I don't know how you don't look at a kid that not only is still young, though by our own assessment and the fan base wanted him to be productive sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Finally gets a chance. We talked about it in camp, held him to a very specific line and a very specific role. And then maybe why I shouldn't give Lindy Ruff a B+. You start to shuffle him around, injuries happen, and he has been everywhere all across these offensive pairings. I applaud the fact that he has been productive, found a way to make a spot for himself on this team. And realistically, over these next handful of games coming out of the break, he is as critical to them stemming the tide until they get themselves healthy.
Yeah, I really hope that he has a little bit more of a role when it comes to minutes, and especially if it's a tie game or it's down by a goal or up by a goal late in the game. I want Ruff to give him that vote of confidence, especially with the injuries. If we're still injured and we're not getting healthy, coming out of the break against the Avalanche and the Flames, you want to see him get more minutes. But I'm right with you. I give him an A, 100%. I think this kid is growing. I think he is going to be a very, very good hockey player. Again, he's got to work on his two-way game, but as a 21-year-old kid, you expect that. That was his weak point coming in as a player, and I've seen progression. I've seen progression from the two-way game. I thought in the beginning of the year he looked a little iffy, and there was a solid 20 games where he was focusing on that defensive responsibility and puck management, getting very, very good at it. And then the last 5 to 10 games he struggled, but again, he's a young player, and I still give him an A for it.
And being asked to, whether he's being asked or not, probably feels compelled to know Jack Hughes, right? Missing weapons offensively. I need to step up and be more productive here as I try to find the right pairing for myself. Who else? Let's stay within on the offensive side of things. Let's talk about centers on this team. Which center really jumps out to you as being quality? Obviously, we don't get to say Jack Hughes, not just because he's injured, but because that would be the easy one. What other centers really stepped up for you here when we think about a guy like Nico Hischier, maybe a guy like Dawson Mercer, who has been thrust into a different role?
Curtis Lazar, he's a center lately, and
there we go.
He is the biggest surprise on this Devils team. I give him an A. I don't think anybody, Bryce Salvador actually touched on it last Devils game. No one expected him to be the player he is right now, and it's phenomenal to see this kid really developing and taking on that role, on the third line. He's a fourth line player, NHL player, so he has really developed into that third line center with all the injuries going on. And I think he's going to stay there, until we get healthier, until maybe we make a trade. But, he's physical on the puck. He creates play. His forechecking is phenomenal. And Lindy Ruff talks about it all the time. Puck management,
Mhm.
responsibility. And he is that guy. He's the guy that I want on the ice. If we're up by a goal late in the game, I trust Lazar every time. I
Yeah.
trust him every time to be on the ice to shut it down. So I really like him, and I'm proud of what he's able to do, and it's a great accomplishment for him. He's really coming into his own and having a career year.
Gotta like the fact that on this roster right now, he sits there with 5, in terms 5th place, excuse me, in terms of total points, on this team. Sorry, shot percentage on this team, 14%. That has produced 6 goals for him to go with his 10 assists, to go with his 16 points. And then on top of that, if we think about block shots and responsibility on that end of the floor, he's given you 35 block shots so far this season. He's also laid out 85 hits to this point. That's good for 3rd best on this roster. And I think of late, with a little bit of shift of identity with some of the injuries, you've seen Lazar. He's always the guy. When he's on there for a shift, you get too close to the goaltender, I'm going to be the guy that gets in between you. Get too close to one of our wingers, one of our speed guys, I'm going to be the guy that comes over and says, if you want to go. And it's not even about that he is the biggest or most physical guy, but he's taken on that mentality. And it's something that this team definitely needs. For me, when we start to look over, and we can always bounce back around here into the defensive spot here, I think I'm going to surprise you with the guy that I'm going to go with here. Another player that gave you 47 games this season. It's a player whose expectations I think were probably a little bit higher than they should have been. But Kevin Ball, to me, has again grown into this role over the course of the season. The physicality has been there for him, right? The defensive responsibility has seemed stronger over the last whatever 15, 20 games or so. Start of the year, wasn't entirely sure. Would I like to see a little more offensive production, shot really going for it when those opportunities come? Of course you would. But when you lose a guy like Dougie Hamilton, who is an offensive defenseman, when these pairings get shuffled up, he is a young player that has played every single game and given you, I think, for the most part, consistent quality minutes, especially of late.
What's the grade?
I'm going to get I'm not going to go A with him here, but I will give him a B plus because again, I think expectations are sky high for him because he's been around with this organization, but he is now getting into this very big role for them. So I'll give him the B plus. I'll give him the B, actually. I'm going to bump him down to a B, but I still mean that in a very positive way because there's still things I think he can improve with and grow this second half. But I love what I've seen from him in terms of taking a step forward, and you're seeing it in real time.
Yeah, a lot of it's tough for me with Kevin Ball because he's had a pretty bad 2 games. The last couple games, he's been.
I know. It's always the worst part, right? Give out
Yeah,
a good grade to a guy who struggled recency bias.
yeah, he's had a couple bad turnovers in the defensive zone.
Mhm.
I'm with you. I give him a B minus. I think that he was put into an impossible position. He's a 3rd pairing guy. He's put into a 2nd and 1st pairing guy this year with all the injuries. He's chewing up a lot more minutes than he was expected to, and it's not easy, for a
Yeah.
kid that never played this many minutes defensively to be put into a role like this is going to be challenging. And listen, he has to clean up the turnovers. But I go back to physicality. I go back to that force behind our goal, our goal
Mhm.
line. That's what you want. You want him to be strong on the puck. You want him not to take a lot of penalties. He's been good at discipline. He's had a few here and there that obviously he wishes he had back. But he's going to learn. He's going to progress. So what position he is on this team, a B minus, I think is fair. Again, I agree with you. I think his game has improved. But to try and fill the role of Ryan Graves, who left this team for the Penguins,
Right.
it's huge skates to fill, and I think that he's done a good job to fill them.
3rd on the team in block shots with 24. 2nd on the team only to Bastion in terms of hits with 86. And you mentioned it here. It's worth reminding, like we are very high on him. Go back. He's been in the league now. It's his 4th year. He played 7 games in 2020,
Yeah.
21. In 2021, 22, he played 17 games. He played 42 games last year, right? So he is already, he'll play in another 10 games of hockey. He'll basically have combined the total of his first 3 seasons in the league. And when you talk about those hit numbers, I thought it is just worth mentioning, and you actually will get a little nod here to Bastion as well, because when you go and look at the all-time players in terms of total hits in a given season, wouldn't you know it, Nathan Bastion is up there 5th overall all time with 194 hits going back to the 21-22 season. But if he stays on this pace ball, he can crest 150. That's top 20. When you think about the modern NHL relative to talking about guys like Jason Arnott and Scott Stevens and Ken Danico, right? Like, those guys are going to be up there. But when you talk about a player in his 4th year that could end up being in the top 20 all time for the franchise in those key categories. And by the way, it's littered with repeats of guys like Arnott Stevenson, Danico, a lot of those names. Colin White gets up there a couple of times as well. Like that, I think, if we think about core identities for the Devils, Ball can start to carve out a bit of that role for himself. And I think we will see that physical mentality to start to amp up a little bit more here, and playing, knock on every single piece of wood you can find, playing a full 82, I think would be a great big step for him. He is also on the ice this season over 17 minutes. That will be a high for his career and almost 3.5 minutes more than he was averaging a year ago.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. Just from last year, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, all right, what do you give me your surprise defenseman and give me your overall grade for the defense, and I'll go right after you.
My surprise defenseman. That's a good question. I didn't think about looking at it like that. Let me have a ponder here. I can't. I'll do this. I'll do this in a very poor fashion. It's not going to be Siegenthaler. He hasn't had a terrific season. It's
That's
not
my
going to be
biggest
Miller.
disappointment. That's my
Yeah,
big.
exactly. I was going to say he's actually going to go in the other category because your expectations. You have a certain expectation you have for a veteran like that. Even Luke Hughes. It's tricky, man. I don't want to go homer about this, but he is up to 8 goals, 18 assists, 26 points on the season. I think his defensive responsibility has been better than expectations. I think I'm going to take a cop out here with Luke Hughes. I know the expectations are high and where his draft stock is, but I actually, again, a lot of areas that frustrate you, right? Getting across, entering the zones, power play passing, little lackadaisical. This is not an ironclad statement I'm making, but I think overall, I do like, this is his first full season, right? This is his first full season of NHL hockey. I think it's easy to forget that. He has been very productive offensively. He's going to be among some of the best defensemen in terms of scoring and offensive production in the league this season. And for rookies, I have to at least give the acknowledgement here. And then I have a sneaking, surprising one. Who was your surprise defensively?
Colin Miller. Colin Miller.
Okay, because I didn't know, 27 games, is it enough, right? He's been thrust around a little bit. He has been very good, though.
Yeah, and going back to Luke Hughes, the same thing with Nemitz. They're two rookies. It's hard for me to say there's surprises, disappointments.
I came close to Nemitz just because I was like, my God, the kid's 19 and he stepped in and has been, looked good, but you got to pump the brakes, right?
Listen, they've played extremely well for being rookies so young in this league, Nemitz and Hughes. And it's great to see them getting this full season in, and they're going to need it. Well, for Nemitz, most of the season, obviously after the injuries and the call-ups, and he's been here since the call-ups. So, it's Colin Miller to me has just stepped in as a 7th defenseman on most teams. He was with the Stars. He played some games with the Stars. But he came in with a dominant role for this Devils team after he came back from his injury. He's been physical. He has a ridiculous shot. He can shoot the puck, which is awesome to see. But he's defensively responsible. He is our most defensive defenseman that still can shoot. So to me, I look at it like Colin Miller has been the stability behind a lot of these injuries. And if we didn't have Colin Miller and we were playing another kid, like say we were playing Hataka, right?
Yeah.
Hataka. I still call him Hataka. But say we were playing him,
off the tongue.
You don't know what would happen, for another rookie to be in Colin Miller's place. You needed that veteran presence to really stabilize what was going on with this defensive core. And I think he stepped up in a big way. And I think Brendan Smith did too.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because I want to mention Brendan Smith, just that to me, Colin Miller, it's like he's the more consistent version of Brendan Smith. And that's always what's been the gripe with some of the fan base. But I thought Smith overall has had a solid season for the team. Just on Miller, real quick here, man. I mentioned he's only played in 27 games, but he already, so far this season to this point, has registered in 27 games, 42 hits. I mean, that is significantly behind guys like Bastian and guys like Ball, but that ranks 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th on the team right now. He's only 6 behind Smith. You expect him to get over top of that. You have Siegenthaler with 48 there, and then you get to the upper echelon starting with 82. The no longer present Michael McLeod, 85 for Lazar, Ball, and then Bastian leading the way. And frankly, man, I'll give a tip of the cap. You talk about a couple of bad games for Ball recently. Tip of the cap to Nate Bastian. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's been my surprise, but I am encouraged by the fact that he has found his kind of footing inside of this team in this role this season, as opposed to early on. He looked slow. He looked out of place. It looked like he was slowing down some of the process for this team, especially transitioning from defense to offense. I like what I've seen from him. No grade. I do like what I've seen. Anybody else that we want to touch on? Good. Oh, yeah,
I'll give him a grade. The beginning of the year for Bastian was an F for me.
There we go.
But now, it's as of late, the last 2 to 4 weeks, we'll say, I give him a B. So overall a C minus.
That's good.
But
Yeah, yeah.
he's played so much better, and you always talked about it. He's just slow. He's looking slow. He's looking way too slow. He has found where he needs to play on this team and really started to refine his game to make sure that he can get the minutes. He had to change what he was doing. He had to be more of that forechecking guy, getting those dirty loose pucks, getting it in front of the net, crashing the net hard, which we're seeing a lot more from Nate, which you have to see. If he's not going to do that, there's no reason to play him. I still don't agree that he is on the power play. I don't know how you feel about it. I'd rather
Don't
see,
love it.
yeah. So it's the role again.
And you know why too, by the way? One of the big reasons I don't love it is because he is a slower player and because the Devils have been a little bit more willing to turn the puck over when on the power play. Your defensive responsibilities and wanting to be anchored in that, you need someone a little more consistent there and capable of giving you coverage. It's almost not his fault, but it does create other issues, I think, inside of the special teams unit.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a disappointment offensively for you.
Disappointment offensively. Oh, real quick though, on Bastion, by the way,
Yeah,
he's
go
on
ahead.
pace to maybe clear. He could be 170, 180 hits on the season. Do you know franchise leader for single season hit total?
Franchise leader,
Yeah.
Scott Stevens.
No, you know what, Scott Stevens? He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th, 7th with his 2001, 2002, 184 hit season. 2 spots behind, actually tied right behind Bastion and Arnott. Both had 194, 99, 2000, excuse me, for Jason Arnott. Leader, Blake Coleman, 2018-19 with 225 hits. How about that?
I actually remember that season for Blake. He was a phenomenal Devil. He's doing great, obviously now, and Calgary's making. Listen, this kid he was unbelievable. I don't know if you remember 2020 season, but he was just all over the board. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Hitting, forecheck, scoring goals. He was a Devil that everybody loved.
100%. My disappointment offensively. This one's a little bit hard because I'm trying to parse through it. And it's funny. Part of me wanted to say, well, Dawson Mercer has just kind of been there. We've talked about now the flexibility of what his role and what's been asked of him. But then you go and you look at the stats and you see that he has 13 goals and 10 assists and 23 points, and his shot percentage is 15.5. And yes, that is going to be third best on the team right now. You go, well, you know what? Maybe it's actually been a lot better in totality, at least from a production standpoint, than we anticipated. I, I have a hard time picking out a guy because of the inconsistency on the offensive end, but I will go back to where we were at the top. Timo Meyer, for me, you just have not been the version of the player that we thought we were getting with you. While plus minus is not the indicator of success, he's a minus 23. He's a minus 23. Dawson Mercer is a minus 13, but he is far and away the most negatively attached player when it comes to that metric. 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points, going to be kind of right in the muddling kind of spot that he was when he played with the San Jose Sharks. So maybe it's my own fault for what my perception is of what he could be, but I thought we were going to see the jump from San Jose production to playing on a quality team. And even beyond those numbers, steadying hand, steadying force. We know he had the injuries. He has played a little bit more consistent of late, certainly, but I kind of wanted to look to him, especially now, as a leader for this team. And he just seems more like a player, and someone else needs to help get this team across the line. I really wanted to see him take on that role, especially in the absence of some of your lead offensive weapons.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's my disappointment. He's playing like a third or fourth line forward.
Yeah,
He's not.
yeah, right. Like, let's be realistic. We thought we had, well, we've got 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that could all be on top 2
Yeah.
lines, and they've tiered themselves out now over the course of this
Oh
season.
yeah. My biggest problem is his inconsistency with his shifts. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm watching a game
Yes.
with
Yes.
Timo. Like he's flying all over the ice in the first period, and then all of a sudden, the second period, he's gone. He disappears. He seems slow to the puck. He seems like he's lazy. I don't know if it's a conditioning thing for him. Coming back off the injuries. I don't
Sure.
think it is. You're an NHL player. You know what you need to do. You're a veteran player. You know what you need to do in this league to be consistent, game in and game out. Game out. But I don't know, man. It's something needs to happen with where he's playing. I think he needs his consistency with his center. He needs to be on the right
Yes.
wing. And it's just it's frustrating, because I like Timo. I think that he's a great guy off the ice. I think he has a great attitude off the ice. I think he has the qualities of being a leader off the ice, but on the ice, it hasn't shown at all. It really hasn't, and that's what's the most concerning, especially seeing how powerful of a force he was against the Rangers in the playoffs last year, just being that physical force, being that pest, being that guy in front of the net, being that guy to take the quick wrist shot that you're not expecting from the slot. These are the things that I want to see from Timo: winning board battles, puck management. So, let's hope after this break, he had time to reset, regroup, get healthier if he's not healthy, and go forward and get some really important goals for this Devils team.
Yeah, we made a note of at the time, the injury, right? And coming out of that, he's only played in 32 games out of a possible 47. So you do want to give him the benefit of the doubt, obviously. I started to chuckle there just because I was clicking around the stats here. Top three. Well, let's say the top five. Top five assist leaders on the Devils this season. Who's number one right now?
It's probably Brett.
It's Jesper Bratt with 31. Luke Hughes is number 3 with 18, 15 for Nico Hischier, and also 13 for both Toffoli and Haula. The third guy that I skipped over is Luke Hughes. He's third on the team right now with 18 assists. But even more beyond that is just that Jack Hughes has 30 assists on the season, right? He's played 32 games. He has played 15 less games than Jesper Bratt and has 1 assist behind him. He's played 15 less games than Jesper Bratt and is only 4 goals off of his pace. Point total on the season. Obviously, Bratt's leading with 50. Jack Hughes has 45 points on the year, right? It's a reminder of how good he is and what it means for this team, right? You don't have to squint hard and say, give me back those 15 games. How much different does it look? How much better does everybody slot into their positions and have that type of consistency? You talk about Timo Meier and others to go and be productive. So it is just that constant reminder here as I think we close out on the high level view of where this team currently stands and what is our overall grade for this team. That'll be the end cap here, right? 24, 20, and 3. Obviously a disappointing last game before hitting the break. What is your overall grade for this team? Everything considered, injuries, decisions, coaching, production, struggles, rookies, all of it. What's your grade for this team over that first 47 games?
C, just a average team right now. An average team because of all the injuries. It's a lot of people have to step up. A lot of players that you would not expect to have to step up. Can't blame the organization or the team for the injuries. It's unfortunate, but listen, they've been an average team, a bubble team, throughout the injury process. And even at the beginning of the season, we had our struggles, and it goes back to me giving the goaltending basically a D- for the year so far because we've been bad, so there's a lot of things that need to improve.
Yeah, we didn't give a grade. The goaltending is absolutely atrocious. There you go. There's a grade.
But there's a lot of things we need to improve on. And a lot of it may come from trades. Listen, the unfortunate thing is we need a center. We need a center now that McLeod is gone. We need another guy that can win faceoffs. That's the reality of the situation. And you and I will talk about it on later episodes. Maybe Henrique comes back in, as our fourth line consistent center. It's do we bring Hannafin in? Do we bring Tanev in? Do we get Markstrom from Calgary and make a big blockbuster trade? There's a lot of what ifs for this Devils organization after this All-Star break. And I think a lot of it, and I think you can agree, Adam, this schedule is tough coming up. We're playing Carolina, we're playing the Rangers, we're playing the Avalanche. If we are bad for the first 10 games out of the break before the deadline, we're going to be sellers. We're going to move pieces, but we're not going to give up what this team could be in years to come. And I want fans to remember that. I want Devils fans to actually sit here and think about it. All the injuries have sucked. It sucks seeing this every single game, holding your breath when you see a guy on the ice. When you saw Jack Hughes go down with a non-contact injury, everyone just cringed, and it's like, it's that bad luck that's happening. Siegenthaler breaking his foot, blocking his shot. These things are going to happen throughout a season. We have just had bad puck luck, right, with injuries. So it comes down to what are the moves that are going to be made? Are we going to be a consistent bubble team? If we are, I think you stay the course and you make some moves to improve defense and get that fourth line center. But it's tough. It's tough because this is not a testament to who we will be in the next 5 years. This season is kind of a conundrum and I don't want it to define who we are as the Devils organization.
One of the negatives for me attached just to this team, for me in terms of the first half of the season, is looking at the 10-11-2 home record. That is a disappointment for me. 14-9-1 on the road, right? So you're playing better away than you are at home. If you protect home ice a little bit more over the first half of this season, maybe this record looks a little bit different. It's funny. You said C over the start of the season, and I'm not, there's no reason to knock it, right? But If you put in any mid-level goaltender into this team, the record looks significantly better. Now, we don't have that, and it goes into the total image of this team. I've already been giving some slightly better grades across the board here, especially in terms of Lindy Ruff. I would give this team a B over the first half of the season. Look inside the standings. Now, again, as you mentioned, by the way, tough schedule. So this can start to turn and get a different color to it here coming out of the break. The Devils have played 47 games. They have 51 points. They have 3 games in hand on the Philadelphia Flyers, who have 56 points right now. They have 2 games in hand on the Islanders, who have 52 points right now and a minus 23 point differential. Like, it's just the bad breaks, the puck luck that the Devils have suffered over these first 47 games cannot be overlooked, especially 15 missed games and counting for Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
And it is up to 27 games and counting for Dougie Hamilton missed. Those are critical pieces. We're not talking about, hey, some of your bottom guys go out. How are you going to fill out the back end of your roster? We've lost some of those players too, by the way. No, your highest profile guys on the offensive and defensive side of this puck have not been able to be there for you. So I'll give them a B. And then we wait and see, by the way. You talk to me in another 5 games and they lose 4 out of 5, then the complexion changes, because right now, even though you're missing those pieces, I still believe that this team is talented enough and is actually more talented maybe than what the record is currently telling you, or thinking about games in hand. Visual positioning in the standings, it looks a lot worse when you're a few more rungs down than maybe you will be a couple of games out.
I think to close out with you, Adam, I think it comes down to one thing for me.
One thing.
Score the first damn goal.
Now more than ever. Yeah.
You cannot play from behind and be a playoff team and be in a steady position in the playoffs when you are playing from behind every single game. It's a testament to how good our offense is, especially when we're healthy, that we can play from behind and can win these games and be on top of the league with comeback wins. But it's not a recipe for continued success, and the Devils will not.
You can finish your thought, but it is the end of the period. The shot would not count in regulation.
That's true. And the Devils will not make the playoffs if they do what they did before the All-Star break. And I think it was 33 or 47 or 48 games, whatever it was, that they did not score the first goal first. So that needs to change. You need some at least average goaltending. You need some steady defense. But I think you can agree a lot rides on when Jack Hughes comes back to really propel this team.
Of course. We highlighted it, right? He's almost leading in every statistical category and he's playing 15 less games than everybody, right? If he's back, it all pops off and the first goals come more readily. And right now, without him on the ice, just to your point, first goals matter because then you can play sound, smart defense, protect your zone, right? Clear pucks. And by the way, sorry, I have to say this so that I don't go without noting it. I do put on Lindy Ruff the way in which this team had played and has played at times, coming out of their own zone, working through the neutral zone, getting and maintaining the offensive zone. There are some things there. Some are decision-making on the players, and then other things are how do you choose and dictate to your players, this is how we want to enter the zone. This is how we want to hold the puck. This is how we want to clear our zone. There have been some strategic moments as well where you question what is being instilled in the locker room. So I don't want to paint a rosy picture across the board here. Frankly, everybody from GM all the way down to the last player on the bench, you could look at and go, yep, there's some areas to improve. Hopefully the Devils do just that. Until next time, when we will talk about the trade deadline that looms, the moves that could be made, maybe a reunion for a former setter for the New Jersey Devils to bring some veteran stability. You go and you get us on YouTube at Devils Puck Luck. You get us over on Twitter at Danny the Face, at Adam Armbrecht, and at NJ Devils PL, and also at Devils Puck Luck on Instagram, on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Facebook. Until next time, though, Danny's got that quick quip to get us out the door.
Are you buying the New Jersey for the outdoor game? I love it.
Oh, I love that thing. What is everyone's problem? Oh, my God. A conversation for another day. Get over it. It looks awesome. It's black and red. It looks sick. I love it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, buying every single one of them. Get your jerseys. We'll see you for the outdoor game and all kinds of other stuff. See you later. Bye.